Ever considered seeing an F1 race live? Experiencing the thundering sound, blistering speed, eye-watering battles up close, and their undeniably electric atmosphere. Now, what if you didn't just go to one, but instead went to all of them? Welcome to Sport Cube Moments, your one-stop pit stop to everything Formula One. The idea alone seems audacious considering the number of variables to be considered. However, as an F1 fan, the concept remains a bucket list worthy pursuit. To be physically present at every F1 race, to take in every ounce of the F1 experience at every race weekend, will not only take meticulous planning, but a healthy budget even with the most frugal of the approaches. The aim of this calculation is to find a balance between being frugal and to experience F1 for everything it is, a luxurious high-end motorsport event. So be prepared to toss some coins into the ether.
I just want to show you this view because it doesn't matter how many times I see this year in, year out, it gets more and more incredible. Check this out.
Before we proceed, we have certain variables to establish. Firstly, we will be using London, UK, as our hypothetical hub. Having a different location will alter the final budget. Secondly, we consider the following expenses in our calculation: flights, accommodation, race tickets, food, spending money, and the off-day equivalents thereof. Thirdly, the calculation aims to optimize the F1 experience with travel. Therefore, we only return to our hub for the winter break before rejoining the F1 crew. Fourthly, Google Flights serves as the source of flight information and costs, this being the pricing most subject to change. Finally, we provide an average budget in euros, with an aim for conservative budgeting without skimping on the primary focus on trips, with the 23 race weekends. These form our base rules and overall approach to the calculation of the F1 super year. Diving in, the first expense we aim to cover will be the flights to and from each race location. Considering the total distance between Grand Prix locations is around 72,000 miles, or about 116,000 kilometers, you'd imagine a pretty hefty bill. However, all in all, it's the least impactful element on your wallet throughout the F1 super year. Flights to and from the respective F1 locations comes in at approximately 10,000 euros. A reasonable price to travel the world before frequent flyer miles and other potential discounts get applied. With our flights total secured, we move on to the actual race weekend. Here we have to consider the necessities: food, accommodation, racing tickets, and spending money, these pertaining solely to race weekends. With F1 being a luxurious sport and the focus of the journey, the approach would be best experienced with a reasonable race weekend budget. The race weekend expenses vary from location to location. For example, the cheapest location on the GP calendar is the Sochi Grand Prix in Russia, and that averages in at around 527 euros for the weekend, whereas the most expensive Grand Prix is Monaco, with an average cost of 1,200 euros. This is a 673 euro difference in overall weekend pricing. Overall, the average cost to attend every race weekend on the 2022 F1 schedule totals in at 19,966 euros, which averages out to approximately 868 euros per race weekend, covering accommodation, food, spending money, and grandstand tickets for the weekend. With all those calculations out the way, we now turn our attention to the final element in pulling off the F1 super year. The last and perhaps most important part of this calculation is the off days in between the race weekend spectacles. For some, it would make sense to return to their hub location. However, in the spirit of this being a year-long adventure, we choose to instead utilize the off days for sightseeing and exploration, or simply recovering and preparing for the upcoming race weekend. When the 2022 F1 season kicks off on the 17th of March in Bahrain, Sakhir, there will be 248 days in between then and the final race in Abu Dhabi on the 20th of November. With 23 race weekends at 3 days apiece, we have accounted for 69 of those 248 days of intense action and adventure. we recover an additional 28 days from the winter break, which will be the only time we return to our hub until the end of the final race in November. This leaves us with a grand total of 152 sightseeing and recovery days.
Maybe we can help you, no?
Yeah, you have to help.
No, we don't have to, but we can.
An average budget to cover accommodation, food, and spending money on these days has been rounded to €275 per day, allowing for ample exploration, cuisine testing, and comfortable accommodation without feeling pinched to the penny. 152 days at €275 averaged a day would total to about €42,000. This, added with the €10,000 flight costs and the €20,000 race weekend costs, brings us to a grand total of €72,000 for the entire super year experience. This approach balances out to create an overall great experience while being conservative on spending. We do, however, recognize that it remains a steep price to pay for a year of in-your-face F1 and an experience that few will ever have the privilege of marking off of their bucket lists. With several 2022 GP locations already sold out, and some requiring formal applications, this feat remains a hypothetical pipe dream. That is, for now, at least. With a rumored 24th venue addition to the race calendar in 2023, we expect the average total to rise. However, the 2023 calendar is looking to be a year-long adventure. The price remains out of the grasp of many, however, it is certainly a year-long vacation unlike anything else, and is well worth saving up for. Although our estimated budget allows one to enjoy the luxuries of F1, it does not equate to the full F1 experience. With that in mind, we're now going to consider 2 additional pricing options away from 3 or 4-star hotels, and instead visit both sides of the pricing spectrum. We're going to start with the lowest price for straight out roughing it, and it's going to run you approximately €29,000 for the entire year. You'd essentially live in a tent trackside, but if that's your preference, you can reasonably pull off the F1 Super Year without breaking the bank in comparison. However, to experience the F1 and a year-long adventure in all its glory, we'd advise making use of the official F1 experience, which F1 directly provides. The ultimate package with backstage access to every race, meeting drivers, and really getting into the F1 atmosphere is going to set you back upwards of €150,000. A stark contrast to that of the most frugal approach indeed. Despite the full F1 experience being double the average price, it would still be worth considering as you move from being a spectator from the grandstand to a spectator behind the scenes. Would you consider taking up the F1 Super Year Challenge if your budget allowed? Which option of the 3 prices would you be willing to save up for? Let us know down below in the comments. And if you aren't already up to date on the latest F1 car developments, have a look at this video, F1 2022 concept car, the nuts and bolts. SportCube Moments, out.